appreciate starting out without me. The public that we're talking to is totally unfamiliar with what a tribunal-like setting is going to be. And so I think that it's time to familiarize folks with the idea that you're not with these kinds of charges that may be coming very shortly. These people aren't getting out, on bail. They're not getting out on appeal after they're convicted. And if there's any appeal in the process at all, it's very, very, very difficult for sentencing and things like that, to the point of almost non-existence. So those people that get arrested and sent to Gitmo are in a real son of a gun. And Gitmo is set up to deal with nation-state level crimes against America and against other countries. So it's not like somebody stole the cookies off the shelf, or just broke a door in and got a few things and ran off with them. This is life and death stuff. All these charges are going to be with whether or not the countries were able to function at all or not.
We got you loud and clear, Juan. Thanks for that contribution.
Okay, good.
And thanks for being here. Yeah, we've had a great conversation, Matt and I, covering a lot of issues concerning process at Gitmo, which leads me to this question. We'll start with Juan, and then we'll have Matt chime in as well. Do you know of any that you can comment on, any recent tribunal history, including terrorists, anything that's been going on that you can share with us in any way, shape, or form?
Well, of course, the 9/11 trials, and they did drag on, and there's all sorts of issues there. The one that I remember personally that I think is closer to what we're talking about is the Cali case, where back in the Vietnam War, Lieutenant Cali was accused of a situation where there were civilians that were killed in a village and not controlling his men or himself. And so that was a tribunal. This is going to be something that has not happened since Nuremberg, really, if you get right down to it. And you're going to have people that were otherwise civilians who are going to be tried in a military setting. If you remember, one of the justices that was being screened by Congress before he could become, a nominee for justice on the Supreme Court. And in that screening, there was questions about whether or not civilians could be tried in military courts. And he answered yes. Well, why was that question asked? That was during the first term for Trump. And because of exactly what we're now facing was in play. We're going to have people get arrested, not for just having some top secret materials like with Bolton, or even lying there, as with Comey with the current charges, but for far, far, far more serious things that amount to treason, involvement in terroristic acts, usurping the will of the voters by putting people into office, violating the vote, which is an act of war, and colluding with other countries to bring that to pass. Those charges are going to be epic, and there's going to be a lot of people that are going to be charged with them. And then bear in mind, I mentioned the other day when we did the show, John, but Gitmo had the harbor. The harbor was built out at Gitmo with moorings that are extremely sturdy, able to handle a Cat 7 storm, not just a Cat 5, Cat 7, for the FEMA ships these ships that would go to a place and assist after disaster that we have around the borders of the country here. Um, those ships can all be taken to Gitmo and sunk in place, and you could have an additional 25,000 on the high end people at Gitmo, there to go through the trial process for various things if that was desired. Um, and by the way, it's not just Gitmo either. You have Diego Garcia out in the Indian Ocean, and it has facilities that are reportedly prepped to take prisoners. And you have a huge operation going on over in Guam that virtually nobody is paying attention to that could also take a very large number of prisoners. So, we're up for something major. Maybe overdoing it, maybe not.
25,000. That's a big number. How is Gitmo, just the Gitmo location itself, capable of processing that? Uh, do they need to expand further than the expansion we've already had over the years?
Well, I think that the only way you can read that is in some kind of an emergency. There's a need to process a lot of people. And by the way, in the processing, you don't get a 3-day, hearing, uh, custody hearing. You don't charging hearing. You don't get a lot of the normal processes that people are used to in an Article 3 court. And Matt mentioned something that I think is really important. Um, these things can be fast, but I think relatively they will be fast in many ways compared to, say, a normal Article 3 court. But uh, they don't have to be super fast. This is about bringing the public along, providing the evidence that the public will want to know and understand how we got where we're at. So racing through some of these trials is maybe not going to happen just by the volume of the evidence. Remember, you have a media center. Matt helped to build it, almost 20 years ago now, I think. And that media center has been expanded in the interim so that media from around the world can show up and be present and ask questions to understand this. And that's why I think even this show is important. The processes that are gone through to do a prosecution with the tribunal are much, much more rapid and streamlined than the civilian courts are. And they're actually designed to process lots of people very quickly. But you can hold a person without charging them for a very long time in this kind of a setting, especially if it's done under a national emergency. So.
Thank you, Juan. I want to go to retired Lieutenant Colonel Matt Mack. Matt, and we'll go back to Juan on this afterwards as well. Let's elaborate about this media center. You've been on the ground there firsthand, Matt. What can you tell us? How big is this media center in terms of square footage? What kind of discourse and reporting might we expect coming out of Gitmo? Will it be live? Will some of it be pre-recorded? Acted? What type of coverage do you anticipate might be coming from Gitmo, and how big is this space?
John, when I was down there in 04 and we had it and we started expanding it, I'd say right now it's probably, I'm trying to get it in my mind of what it would look like so the audience could understand it and visualize it. It's probably like probably a good size, the inside of it, a good size high school gymnasium, right? A big high school, good size gym, about that big. It's designed to facilitate media, and also non-governmental organizations, because one of the things that we do, as we talked about earlier in the show, want to be transparent, show what's going on, not have it done like a court of star chamber or a show trial, but also to Juan's point, to bring the audience along, to let them see what's going on. So I don't know if there'll be live transmissions from there. I know you'll have reporters covering it live, probably recording it, much like I think you see with the White House pool reporters when they go with the president from like the White House to Andrews Air Force Base. And I don't call it Joint Base Andrews; it's still Andrews Air Force Base to me. They'll delay the broadcast from a security perspective, right? So you don't necessarily want to let people know a high value target or defendant is in the media center at that time. So it's very robust, very large, and it's designed to accommodate a large number of media. And I think what you're going to see Trump do is not just the media that we grew up with, but media like this, the independent media that sadly, unlike the corporate media, is the only media that reports the truth and admits when they get something wrong and not afraid to ask the tough questions. But I think you're going to see it. I think you're going to see it not broadcasted live, but you'll see robust and unprecedented access to the media there, John, and non-governmental office, Red Cross, Red Crescent, they'll all be able to be there.
Thank you, Matt. Just a quick comment on the independent media, or the whatever term you like to use. One of the reasons I might add is they don't have a bias or an agenda other than to get the truth reported. And that leads me to Pete Hegseth. I don't have the facts in front of me. I'm paraphrasing this, but he recently, through the Pentagon, has revoked the licenses of almost every major media outlet on covering certain events because they would not sign a document put forth by Hegseth and so forth to protect secrets for the nation's safety. I, of course, applaud that. But if you've got the majority of the media now, I guess does this pertain to covering Gitmo as well? It leads to a big question. What is the process and whom is in charge of it that chooses and qualifies those who will be granted access at this media center in Gitmo to report all the avalanche of activity that's happening and on its way? Does that make sense as a question, or do I need to clarify it?
No, John, it makes sense. I would submit it'll be the Department of War would have. If history is a guide, they were in charge of credentialing for media to go down to Gitmo. So I would say the same thing would happen for these tribunals. It's going to be the Department of War. So your point is well taken. That media that just said, basically gave the two-finger, I won't put them up, but two-finger salute to the Pentagon, basically common sense things, right? They don't want you roaming. Literally, journalists there could roam around the halls of the Pentagon, right? They could just roam around at will. You can't do that in the White House. You can't do that in other locations. That's just asinine, right? So I think they've cut their throats here, the corporate media or the mainstream media, whatever you want to call them, because they now have said, I'm not complying.
Well, that's encouraging in terms of us getting good, unfiltered information. Juan, if you still got audio transmission on Juan, if you can comment on this question as well, Juan, we'd appreciate it.
Well, as to the way the media would be able to cover this, there's several things. They may be able to interview attorneys that are coming and going from their trials about certain things that they can talk about. Remember, a lot of the stuff is going to be highly classified. So there's a evidence review area, actually several of them now, that attorneys can go in and view the evidence against their client that is classified. They can't take it out of there, copy it,
We've lost audio on Juan. Hang in there, folks. He may be popping back in.
Classified stuff, what they can tell to the media, but they'll be talking to the media right there. So there's as close to a opportunity to be fair, the world knows what's going on as possible while not giving up any secrets.
Thank you, Juan. Juan, before you joined us, Matt and I covered a lot of ground. We've been at this for about an hour. We'll probably wrap up in the next 10 minutes or so. But I wanted to have you weigh in also on something Matt commented on. We talked about the Nuremberg trials, and I, evoked the idea that the biological weapon and all those that orchestrated this are crimes against humanity. Of course, Putin wants his hands on them, the international courts. And I would imagine so do we. And do you see a Nuremberg-style trials, modern day, taking place down at Gitmo or other locations under our jurisdiction, taking place for these crimes against humanity that have been done to the people in America and all over the world? Do you think we'll have Nuremberg-style trials for the likes of Bill Gates and Fauci and anyone else that due to due process that end up having to face a Nuremberg-style trial? Do you think we're going to have that? And if so, how does that look? What does it look like to us?
Now, let me dive in there. So you can't discuss the election fraud, the crimes against America and other countries around the world, and not address the COVID racket, the attempt to affect the way the vote was conducted, not just in America, but around the world. And by the way, I'll remind people, these clubs, these groups, they love to have their hidden messages, signals, handshakes, etc. 19 is the power number. And so they even tattooed that number into this whole operation. This was a far more extensive operation than most people have understood to this point in time.
All right, folks, we've got intermittent contact with Juan. We'll hope he bounces back in. Matt, did you want to chime in while we're waiting?
John, I want to, if I can, just for it's about a 40-second clip. I'm going to play it so you can hear it. But this is President Trump addressing the 800 flag officers at Marine Corps Base Quantico about a week or so ago.
And they said, we'd like to name it the F-47. I said, let me think about it. And after thinking for about 2 seconds, I said, okay. You know what that means, 47, I'm 47. So I'm 45, 46, and 47, if you think about it.
Did you hear that?
I just don't want the credit for 46. I don't want to have their open borders. And
he said, I'm 45, 46, and 47.
Thank you very much for airing that here. That's a go sign, big time. Excellent. Juan, you're back. These folks.
Yeah, I'll probably be gone range momentarily, but let me just add one quick thing, okay. John. You asked me about the COVID.
Sure.
COVID-19, 19 is the power number. They emblazon tattoo all their secret messages into everything. You cannot hold the Gitmo trials when it comes to the elections and the vote fraud to put in leadership that wasn't the will of the American people and other countries around the world, without including the vaccine and those who ended to help cooking the steel control of countries all over the world. It must be part of the act. It killed millions.
Thank you, Juan. I'm going to attempt a last quick question before you disappear audio on us. Matt and I discussed earlier, all roads lead to Hillary and Obama. We've connected the dots on that, and I think the American people understand that. My last question to you, Juan, is with the FISA exposure, the Russiagate, Benghazi, and everything, the election theft and everything else, the 51 individuals on the laptop, all of these things now are official through respective areas of our administration. With all roads leading to Hillary and Obama, I see the word treason here. I'm not going to dance around it. What do you see potentially playing out with those two names, considering these soon-to-be charges?
Well, you've got to have prosecutions here. You can't do it through the justice system. It's just too fried, cooked, and it will be in a military setting. Hillary will not get away with all the stuff that she did because the dossier was paid for by Hillary's campaign in collusion with foreign governments, including British intelligence and several other intelligence agencies. Brennan's going down. Bill Clinton is included with the latest stuff out of Ukraine. He's been invoked as being heavily involved in what happened with the theft of our elections with assistance out of Ukraine. So, and the Clinton Foundation and money laundering, etc. The next couple of years, probably for the next 10 years, you will be seeing the direct action in the form of prosecutions for those people involved in this act of war against America and other countries, and the fallout from it. So this isn't over anytime soon, but the big opening is very, very, very short now, I believe.
Thank you very much, 107. We're going to close out the show with Matt, but before we do, Juan, any announcements or anything else you care to share with our audience before we sign you off?
Well, I haven't raised my prices on silver over at allpatriots.gumroad.com. I'm going to pretty shortly. We've had silver touch in the mid 54 range, headed to 55. It's pulled back a bit, which I expected, and I told people I expected for 70. Everybody knows it. It'll stabilize a little bit. Possibly here, but then rocket off. There's, the lines in countries around the world just to get gold and silver. Australia, Vietnam, Japan, Korea, unbelievable, Philippines. So people know something's going on. It's going to get very sketchy here. And then Jen has some fun stuff over at the Jennifer Mack. So, get in there while the getting's good. Prices are going way higher than this. So, talk to you later.
Juan, I'd love to have you back on the global financial reset live show I do in the near future to comment on the backwardation and the games that are being played as the handcuffs are coming off the silver market out of London and so forth. So thanks for raising that issue. We'll say goodbye to 107. God bless you, sir. Stay safe on the highway.